The name Stonehenge is thought to come from the Old English or Saxon word Stanhengen, which means stone hanging, because it kind of resembles what gallows looked like in the Middle Ages.
At around 6 tons, the big question is how on earth it was transported from northeast Scotland.
For ages, Stonehenge stood as a mute giant, its purpose guessed at, never grasped. But when scientists fed its deepest measurements into advanced AI, something impossible surfaced: hidden patterns, buried alignments, signals of a design far more deliberate than history ever allowed.
It's a loss for Wales, no doubt, but Wales has contributed so many rocks to this monument, I'm sure Scotland can have one.
Whatever Stonehenge once was, it wasn't just a monument, it was a message, one we were never meant to decode. The data nobody had ever connected. Inside a temperature-controlled archive smelling of chalk dust and decades-old paper, a small team of researchers crowded around a table stacked with over a century's worth of Stonehenge data.
Unknown civilization living right here of Bronze Age people who built Stonehenge.
There were shaky handwritten excavation notes from the early 20th century, high-resolution aerial photos from Cold War flights, LiDAR scans from military satellites, and soil core samples pulled from chalk untouched by sunlight for millennia. Each record had lived alone on different shelves in different institutions and created by different generations, never meant to meet. Then one postdoc, fueled by caffeine and curiosity, said, "Feed it all into the AI. Everything." It sounded reckless. The datasets were fragmented, inconsistent, and made for completely separate purposes. Yet over 3 months, the team committed. They scanned, cleaned, digitized, and organized every piece of Stonehenge data ever collected. Thousands of photographs, tens of thousands of handwritten measurements, magnetic anomaly logs, soil chemistry reports, drone footage, even sketches from long-retired archaeologists. All of it flowed into a single digital archive, a leviathan built to find patterns no human could. When the AI was ready, the command was simple: find patterns. Patterns in stone placement, patterns in chisel marks carved by hands long gone, patterns in burial pits scattered across the grass, patterns in magnetic ripples beneath the soil, patterns invisible to the human brain, unable to hold a century of data at once.
Stone monuments believed to have been hidden for thousands of years, not far from the famous site of Stonehenge.
Then it appeared, a geometric symbol on the screen, clean, sharp, repeating. At first, the team brushed it off as a glitch or some artifact from merging incompatible datasets, but the AI flagged it again and again, 16 separate times. It wasn't coming from one source. The same symbol surfaced in aerial photos taken half a century apart, in early excavation sketches, in modern LiDAR scans, in magnetic surveys, in soil core mineral maps, and even in alignment models of the stones.
Stone monuments believed to have been hidden for thousands of years, not far from the famous site of Stonehenge.
Different researchers, different eras, different tools, yet the same form was hiding in every layer of data, a pattern humans had overlooked for generations, finally pulled into the open by the AI. The room shifted from curiosity to disbelief, because this wasn't just a symbol. It aligned perfectly with the placement of several stones, the orientation of solstice shadows, and the buried features beneath the surface. It hinted that Stonehenge wasn't arranged randomly or even symbolically, but according to a precise geometric design, one planned down to exact ratios long before written mathematics existed in Britain. One researcher leaned closer and whispered, "Tell me that's not real." It felt real, and everyone knew what that meant. If the symbol held up under deeper analysis, Stonehenge might not simply be a monument. It might be evidence of a level of engineering knowledge far more advanced than scholars ever believed. The discovery wasn't an answer. It was the opening to a much larger question. Underground blueprint traces. The first clue appeared in the ground-penetrating radar scans. Faint and ghostly lines stretched beneath the outer edges of Stonehenge, reaching far beyond the area anyone had studied before.
Now, a new analysis shows that the 6-ton iconic altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge.
For decades, archaeologists had dismissed these marks as nothing more than the scars of old plowing or the natural effects of erosion. They never imagined that the lines were part of the original monument. When the AI overlaid the subsurface traces with excavation photographs from the 1930s, a link finally emerged. The radar lines matched depressions that earlier excavation teams had recorded and then ignored. The AI did more than detect a match. It revealed that the lines formed a repeated and deliberate pattern. The shape was not random. The researchers watched the glowing monitors as the meaning became impossible to deny. These traces radiated outward from the main stone circle and lined up with the angles of the solstices. The summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset appeared in perfect alignment with these buried features.
Thousands of people have gathered here at Stonehenge to watch the sunrise on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year.
This meant the builders had extended Stonehenge far beyond the stones that are still standing today. What looked like natural disturbances in the soil was actually the remains of a much larger engineered structure that had been designed to work with the movement of the sun. These traces were structural ghost lines. They formed the invisible skeleton of an outer construction that once existed around Stonehenge. When the AI ran hundreds of simulations, the result was astonishing. The lines created a near-perfect ring that was hundreds of meters wider than the visible monument. This meant the builders had not created a simple circle of stones. They had designed a massive hidden frame that surrounded the site and shaped the landscape. The purpose of this frame appeared to be astronomical because every trace connected to a solar angle. One researcher whispered that it felt as if the builders wanted the pattern to exist without being seen. The room fell silent. Every radar pulse and every neglected excavation note suddenly appeared as part of a larger message. The AI was revealing a geometric plan that had been buried for thousands of years. This plan showed that Stonehenge was only the central piece of a far bigger monument, and not a standalone structure as many had believed. The team began mapping the invisible ring and compared it with the positions of burials, pits, and ceremonial sites across the plain.
Dismantle and take their sacred stone circle with them. They then migrate to Salisbury Plain.
The ring passed beneath areas that had no standing stones and connected to magnetic anomalies and shallow depressions that no one had understood before. Every new piece of information confirmed that the builders had shaped the earth itself. They had created a coordinated system that extended across the land and used the underground ring as part of its design. A pattern that predates the stones. By stacking soil disturbance records from multiple eras, the system began to expose sequences that clearly existed long before the stones were raised. The imprints were deliberate, recurring, and spaced with precision. The AI identified 76 evenly distributed points forming a flawless circular plan beneath the ground. Each point sat exactly where the pattern required, creating a ring so precise it could not have been accidental. No archaeologist had noticed it before. No excavation over the past century had documented it. Yet the pattern had remained in place, hidden just below the surface, waiting for the correct tool to reveal it. Archaeologists reviewed the findings with caution, comparing the digital model with generations of excavation notes. Nothing in Wiltshire or in surrounding regions matched this configuration. The familiar stones were only one piece of a much deeper narrative.
Lubbock, this tells him exactly who built Stonehenge, and it is not who anybody expected.
Radiocarbon tests on organic traces from the soil markers supported the AI's reconstruction. The disturbances dated to nearly 1,000 years before the first stones were transported, forcing a full re-evaluation of Stonehenge's origins and function. For decades, researchers believed Stonehenge stood as an isolated achievement constructed on untouched terrain. The AI indicated the opposite. The monument appeared to be a successor built atop a far older and far more intricate design. The land had preserved a memory, a concealed template from a civilization that predates written history, whose structures had almost faded completely. A quiet tension filled the lab. One researcher finally asked, "Does this mean someone built here first?" The AI offered no interpretation. It simply displayed the pattern, the spacing, and the verified dating. The evidence pointed to a single conclusion. Stonehenge may have risen on top of an earlier engineered site whose creators and purpose had been obscured by time. The circular markers demonstrated advanced understanding of geometry, astronomy, and large-scale planning that exceeded expectations for early Neolithic communities. Their precision implied a group capable of surveying, organizing, and constructing a complex layout without leaving behind the monumental stones that later builders used. Yet the soil retained the traces, preserving them silently for thousands of years until an analytical system could recognize them. As the team reviewed the data, a heavy realization settled over them. If Stonehenge represented the second phase, what structure had occupied the land first? And why had the earlier design been erased so thoroughly, leaving only faint signatures in the earth? The AI had illuminated a truth that human observation had never revealed. The remaining answers lie buried beneath the chalk, waiting for further discovery. Tool marks no one noticed before. High-resolution photogrammetry scans capturing millions of data points with unmatched precision revealed tiny scratches and faint incisions across the surfaces of several sarsen stones. At first, the marks appeared ordinary, the scars of millennia of wind, rain, and human touch. But when the AI began to analyze the grooves, a pattern emerged that no human eye had ever detected. The algorithms linked the scratches to known stoneworking techniques, yet with a twist that stunned the researchers. One set mirrored craftsmanship seen at Durrington Walls, the nearby Neolithic settlement often associated with Stonehenge's builders.
The area around Stonehenge sees the arrival of a group that's come to be known as the Bell Beaker people.
Another set matched techniques used at the Ness of Brodgar in Orkney, hundreds of kilometers away from a civilization separated by centuries. The implications were profound. The stones had not been shaped once, but had been reworked, reshaped, and re-engraved over generations. This was not the work of a single construction period or a solitary culture. Stonehenge had evolved across centuries, a palimpsest of human skill and intention, continuously modified to reflect new knowledge, rituals, and purposes. Each mark told a story. Some scratches were fine and delicate, suggesting careful ceremonial work. Others were rough, heavier, implying rapid movement, perhaps during transport or repositioning. The AI could date these styles with remarkable accuracy, revealing sequences of construction phases previously unknown. Every generation of stoneworking left its fingerprint, invisible to humans until now. The team mapped the markings against burial pits, solstice alignments, and subsurface anomalies. Patterns emerged. Stones shaped with Orkney-style techniques aligned with specific sightlines. Marks reminiscent of Durrington Walls appeared near ceremonial spaces within the circle. It was as if the monument itself carried the influence of multiple cultures, preserving knowledge shared silently across space and time. By the conclusion of the analysis, the team faced a radical possibility. Stonehenge was no longer an isolated achievement. It may have been a hub within a larger cultural network spanning Britain. Tools, techniques, and traditions separated by centuries and hundreds of kilometers had converged here, leaving traces in stone that humans had overlooked for generations. The monument, long assumed to be the pinnacle of a single Neolithic community, revealed connections and collaborations far broader than anyone had imagined. The hidden chamber signature. Beneath Stonehenge's heelstone, a faint low-frequency magnetic signal pulsed through the data.
This is the altar stone, the heart of Stonehenge, now partially buried. It's one of the largest stones here.
So weak that earlier surveys had completely ignored it. The instruments of the past were not sensitive enough to detect it, and human eyes could not perceive what the AI had flagged. Yet there it was, persistent, repeating, impossible to overlook. Curiosity shifted to urgency. The team returned with ultra-wide bandwidth radar, sweeping the heelstone and surrounding soil with painstaking precision. What the AI had suggested became undeniable. A rectangular cavity, perfectly cut, buried beneath centuries of earth and stone. The edges were sharp, the angles exact, crafted with a skill lost to time. No natural process could have produced such a form. As the data were examined further, soil compaction studies revealed something extraordinary. The cavity had been opened and carefully resealed at least 3 separate times across prehistoric eras. Each reopening left a subtle fingerprint in the earth, a compressed layer slightly distinct from the previous one. Whoever had accessed the chamber returned over generations, marking its significance across centuries. The question loomed: what had been placed inside this chamber? There was no trace remaining, no tool marks, no artifacts, no debris, only an empty cavity carrying a story written invisibly in the soil. The AI cross-referenced the dimensions against burial practices, ceremonial pits, and storage chambers across Neolithic Britain. Nothing matched perfectly. It was unique, a design without precedent and without clear explanation. Speculation crackled through the lab. Was it a ritual repository, a tomb, or a container for sacred objects now lost to history? Each idea seemed plausible, yet none completely satisfied. Its position directly beneath the heel stone, aligned with solstices, hinted at a deliberate connection between celestial observation and underground concealment. The placement was too precise to be accidental. Whoever built it understood both sky and earth simultaneously.
It seems that Stonehenge is accurately built to highlight the longest and the shortest days of the year.
Every scan, every soil layer, every faint magnetic pulse deepened the mystery. This was no ordinary cavity. It was a hidden chamber meant to survive millennia, untouched by time or human curiosity, now revealed through AI. Stonehenge was not only a surface monument. Beneath its stones lay secrets preserved for thousands of years, waiting for technology capable of decoding them. The team exchanged tense, electrified glances. One senior researcher whispered, "We have found a doorway into the past no one was meant to see, and we still do not know what walked through it." The lab felt alive with anticipation. For the first time, the invisible architecture beneath Stonehenge, surviving centuries of erosion and speculation, began to speak. Only the AI could translate its long-silenced language. The unusual energy alignment. The AI did not stop at the ground. It turned its focus skyward into a domain no human had ever fully charted: multi-epoch celestial alignment modeling. Past studies had compared Stonehenge's layout with solstices, the sunrise and sunset of the longest and shortest days.
Discovers that actually Stonehenge is aligned with the sun.
That was an observation limited by season and a single human lifetime. The AI, however, could simulate the skies across 8,000 years, tracking rotations, shifts, and subtle celestial cycles that no Neolithic engineer could have anticipated. It was during this simulation that something extraordinary appeared. The inner stones, the tightly packed sarsens at the monument's core, did not merely follow the sun. They aligned precisely with a rare lunar standstill, a moon cycle that peaks roughly every 19 years. At first, the researchers assumed coincidence, but the AI went further. The alignment only worked when paired with an even rarer orbital tilt shift, a subtle wobble of the Earth's axis that occurs once in several millennia. The implications stunned the team. Whoever built Stonehenge had encoded a system to track the sun, the moon, and shifts in the planet's tilt, all through stones and shadows. The level of astronomical precision suggested knowledge far beyond what scholars attributed to Neolithic societies. It was as if the builders had compressed centuries of observation into a single monumental design.
But for all its fame, it remains a deeply mysterious place, an enigma. Stonehenge.
Silence fell over the lab as the researchers absorbed the data. Shadows, long considered passive byproducts of sunlight, were in fact instruments of measurement. A stone's shadow at a precise angle on a specific day marked not only solstices but also lunar peaks and subtleties in the Earth's rotation. Stonehenge was not a ceremonial circle or a calendar. It was a celestial computer, operating with a sophistication that modern engineers could barely replicate without satellites, software, and precise instruments. The AI's geometric analysis connected the inner stones to the outer circles, burial mounds, and even distant Neolithic sites. The alignments were deliberate, their mathematical relationships too exact to be accidental. The placement of each megalith accounted for energy, astronomical, gravitational, or symbolic. Stonehenge was not only stone and earth, it was a system, a network, a machine built to read the sky over millennia. A junior researcher whispered, voice trembling, "This is not just Stonehenge. It's a program built in rock to measure the cosmos, and it has been waiting for someone to understand it." The team realized the AI had achieved what human minds had not. It had revealed a function so advanced it bordered on the impossible. Stonehenge was no mere monument. It was a portal into knowledge, a tool designed to interact with the heavens, and until now, only a machine could interpret it. the signal behind the stones. The AI noticed the empty spaces between each pillar and the small dips hiding in the chalk. It also caught the way the early morning shadows stretched and curled, along with the quiet magnetic signals buried under centuries of soil. When it layered solstice shadows, old pits, faint soil disturbances, and geophysical readings together, something unexpected appeared. A 12-point radial layout spread across the entire Stonehenge area, sharp and intentional, yet completely hidden in plain sight.
This indicates that Stonehenge was built much earlier than people had previously understood it to be built.
The researchers' first thought was simple. Something had to be wrong. Maybe the data was corrupted or the system pushed too hard. But the same pattern kept showing up in every data set. LiDAR scans revealed those lines in careful topographic detail. Ground-penetrating radar traced the same spokes below the Earth. Even early sketches drawn by archaeologists nearly a century apart hinted at these points, though none of them understood what they were seeing at the time. Soil core samples are lined up with the same geometry. Every source, no matter how old or modern, tells the same story. Historians went digging for any old symbol or cultural reference that matched the design. They searched through prehistoric carvings, ritual markings, astronomical guides, navigation tokens, and ancient calendars. Nothing came close. The geometry seemed too clean, too exact, too controlled. It felt out of place for the period, yet there was no denying that it was placed with absolute intent. Someone had gone to great lengths to hide a plan directly inside the landscape. Then the real surprise hit. The 12 points matched perfectly with the positions of long-lost wooden posts from the old timber henge that once stood around the site. Early dig photos showed faint circular stains and dark patches in the soil, but no one had connected them. When the AI plotted the posts in three-dimensional space, they fell right into the radial pattern with pinpoint accuracy. The wooden structures had never been random. They were part of a blueprint that existed long before the iconic stones were ever moved into place. This changed the whole story. The stones were not the start of Stonehenge. They were the upgrade, the second chapter. The AI reconstruction showed that the radial geometry spread far beyond the familiar circle. It reached into distant patches of ground, crossing old pits, strange soil disturbances, and magnetic anomalies that earlier researchers had written off. The entire plain was part of a much larger design, one that shaped everything from the surface to the hidden layers beneath. The team suddenly realized the truth. Stonehenge was not an isolated monument. It was sitting on top of an older, more complex structure coded into the earth itself. The blueprint did not belong to a single moment in history. It belonged to generations. When the full model appeared on the screen, the room went completely quiet. One researcher leaned in and whispered, "The stones were never the message. The code underneath was." And with that, the team understood what the AI had revealed. They had not just uncovered a monument. They had uncovered a system, one that waited thousands of years for someone with the right tools to finally see it. But now, what the AI uncovered next was difficult to explain. The finding scientists can't explain. The moment of revelation arrived quietly inside the lab. For months, the team had been feeding the AI every piece of data ever gathered at Stonehenge, including more than a century of excavation notes, aerial surveys, LiDAR scans, soil cores, magnetic readings, and acoustic tests. When the system finally processed everything, it produced a model that none of the researchers had expected. On the screen appeared a multi-ring blueprint hidden beneath the familiar stones.
The discovery shows that its construction was a far greater collaborative effort than scientists believed.
A design encoded directly into the landscape. At first, the team stared in disbelief. The blueprint was precise. It was not a series of rough lines or approximate circles. It was an integrated, interlocking system that mapped the positions of stones, missing wooden posts, and even subtle features of the terrain. The AI revealed patterns that tracked lunar standstills, solar solstices, and seasonal paths of animals that had traversed the Wiltshire Plains for millennia. Every element is aligned with mathematical rigor, forming a network that no known prehistoric society has ever documented. Even more remarkable was the acoustic component. The AI detected anomalies in how sound traveled through specific subsurface cavities. These voids, rectangular and sharply defined, were positioned to reflect and amplify sound along precise lines. In effect, Stonehenge was not only a celestial observatory, but also an instrument engineered to manipulate sound across space and time. The placement of stones, pits, and hidden chambers suggested a sophisticated understanding of both earth and air, coordinated into a single, deliberate system. The researchers cross-checked the AI's findings with every historical record, excavation report, and astronomical calculation. Traditional explanations, ritual site, burial ground, or simple solar tracker, could not account for the complexity revealed. The geometries were too precise, the interactions between earth, stone, sky, and sound too integrated to have been the result of chance. The blueprint indicated simultaneous knowledge of lunar and solar cycles, animal migration, and acoustic resonance, all encoded into a landscape that modern humans had considered simple for centuries. No explanation satisfied the team. Archaeologists debated how Neolithic engineers could have measured, calculated, and executed such precision. Historians questioned the cultural context, searching for any society capable of combining geometry, astronomy, and sound. The AI offered patterns, but no motives, no rationale. Its output confirmed what humans could measure, but it could not answer why the design had been created or by whom. The data left no doubt. Every measurement corroborated the others. Every line, every void, every subtle anomaly formed a coherent system that had survived for thousands of years. The implications were staggering. Stonehenge was no longer merely a ring of stones. It was the surface expression of a far older, far more intricate structure. Its apparent simplicity masked a network of encoded knowledge spanning generations. When the team published their results, they did so with restraint. The statement read, "We have the data. We do not yet have the explanation." No claim was made about purpose, culture, or ritual. Only the facts were presented. The AI had uncovered a hidden language in the landscape, geometry, astronomy, and sound working in tandem. It had revealed a system designed to survive time, waiting for an intelligence capable of deciphering it. For the world, Stonehenge ceased to be just a monument.
This rendition shows the giant monument of as many as 100 stones with space for 100 more.
It became a challenge, a puzzle, a proof that the prehistoric builders achieved a level of sophistication previously thought impossible. Every stone, every cavity, every alignment told part of the story, yet the full narrative remained beyond human comprehension. The AI had opened a door into the past, revealing that the familiar circle of standing stones sat atop a far more complex design. Stonehenge was no longer complete to the human eye. Its true scale and intent had only begun to be understood, hidden for millennia, and revealed at last through the meticulous lens of technology. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.